Our girl Layla sits in a corner of the train, curled up and looking worn out. There's a tired, weak smile on her face as she thinks back to the promise she made, when the flowers bloom in spring, we'll all go to the park together. It was the last thing her parents said to her, and after that, spring never came for them. Everything fell apart. This is her life now, alone in a world that's been harsh and unfair. She's bounced from one relative's house to the next, each place filled with nothing but struggle. Her relatives don't care about her. They tease and mock her, making it clear she's just a burden. They say she has to do whatever they want if she wants to stay. One day, Layla finally snaps. She screams, telling them to let go of her, that she's done with their games. But they don't care. Her uncle tells her if she won't play along, she'll have to leave. Her green eyes, so sad and deep, say more than words ever could. They tell the story of a girl who's been abandoned, who's lost everything. Her aunt's kids are always cruel to her, treating her like a problem they want to get rid of. It doesn't matter that she's family, they want her gone, and they don't hide it. They tell her there's no reason to keep her around, especially since her own mother left her. In one of their meanest moments, they throw her into a lake, almost drowning her. It's clear they are not just picking on her, they want her out of their lives for good. Layla is dragged into the house, her body hurting from the beating she just received. But it's not over. Her uncle is there, and he's ready to hurt her again. His anger is all aimed at her, and he blames her for all the bad things in his life. He says his luck has been terrible since she came to live with him. No one can stop him, especially when he's lost money gambling. He comes home drunk, full of rage, and takes it all out on Layla. His wife begs him to stop, to spare the little girl, but he doesn't care. Layla is trapped in a nightmare, with no way out. She has no place to go, no one to help her. She just lies there, staring up at the stars, wondering if things will ever get better. But the world is cruel, and bad things just keep happening, like snow falling suddenly in the middle of the night. The next day, Layla talks to her aunt. She promises she won't be a burden. She says she'll stay quiet, do whatever her aunt asks, just so she won't be abandoned. She clings to her aunt, tears in her eyes, begging her not to leave her alone. But her aunt doesn't care. She pulls Layla's hands off, telling her it's enough, telling her to leave. Go find another relative, she says. Layla is falling apart, ready to break down, but all she gets from her aunt is a cold, empty look. Her aunt says anywhere is better than here, then tells her goodbye. Once again, Layla is left alone, standing on the side of the road in the freezing cold. History repeats itself. After that, she ends up at another relative's house, hoping for something better, but deep down, she knows it's just the same story. One of her uncles says she's worthless just because she's a girl. He tells everyone she's only going to cost him money, and that's all she's good for. Her aunt asks her what she did wrong to get kicked out of the last house, like it's all Layla's fault. She questions why Layla even showed up at her door, and in the end, she rejects her too. Another family decides they can't take care of her, either. Layla thought being quiet and doing what she was told would make people like her, but it wasn't enough. It seems no one is willing to take care of an orphan, especially a girl whose own mother abandoned her. Layla starts to wonder if this is just how things are, maybe it's normal. After all, her own birth mother left her, so why would anyone else want to take her in? Layla finds herself in a new place, sitting at a table with a man. He asks her if she knows where Berg is. She says she does. He writes something down on a piece of paper, and hands it to her. He tells her to go to Berg and find a person he describes on the paper. He says the paper has the contact information she'll need. Layla clutches the piece of paper tightly, knowing she'll board the first train to Berg, leaving Levita, the place where she was born and raised. On the train, she holds the paper close, a spark of hope in her eyes. She's curious about what's to come, hoping for a better future, placing her hopes on the unknown name written there. When she arrives at the Berg Karlsvar station, everything seems fine. People are going about their day like it's any other, but Layla's heart is full of questions. She's here, in Berg, but will she be able to find him? What if she can't? She can't go back to Levita, there's nothing for her there anymore. She tries not to think the worst and stays hopeful, reminding herself that this is where her father was born. She can speak the Berger accent because of him, and that makes her feel a little more at home in this strange place. There was a time in Layla's life when everything was peaceful. She was much younger then, smiling and enjoying happy moments with her parents. But time moves fast, and things change. Now, Layla is older, a smart young lady who keeps encouraging herself. She reminds herself that if she ever feels lost or unsure about what to do, all she has to do is ask. As she walks forward, she continues to speak positive words in her heart. She's confident she'll be fine, and that she doesn't have to worry about anything. As she walks, she notices a postman nearby. He looks friendly, so without hesitating, she approaches him. Layla asks him if he can help her find a location, the one written on the piece of paper she's holding. The postman looks at the paper and gives her a kind response. He says he knows the name and address on it. As luck would have it, he's familiar with the person she's looking for. He tells her the person's name is Bill Lemma, and he works as the gardener for the Duke. The postman says he's actually on his way to deliver something to the Duke's mansion, and that it's fine if she joins him. Layla is surprised by the turn of events. Could this be fate finally turning in her favor? She can't believe her good luck and the kindness of the postman. She thanks him, feeling a mix of excitement and relief, and starts walking with him. They move forward with a cart, and Layla is amazed by all the things she sees along the way. When they finally arrive at the Duke's mansion, she is in awe. It looks like something out of a fairy tale. She's here to meet the gardener, but the mansion itself is just as incredible. It's hard to believe someone works as a gardener in such a beautiful place. This is where her journey has led her. Layla walks with her bag in hand, her mind racing with thoughts of what kind of person Mr. Bill Lemma will be. She spots him not too far away, working in the garden. When she sees him, she feels a little nervous. Will he accept her? She takes a deep breath, trying to calm herself. Whatever happens, she's ready to meet him. She's determined to be polite and smile when she talks to him. She raises her voice and asks if he is Mr. Bill Lemma, and when he hears her, he stops working, lays down his shovel, and looks her way. He confirms that he's the person she's looking for. Layla is surprised by his appearance and starts to sweat, feeling a little shaken. She takes a deep breath, reminding herself that she's prepared for this moment for a long time. She can't mess it up now. Layla gathers her courage and speaks up. She greets Mr. Lemma with a warm smile and introduces herself as Layla Lulin, saying she's from Levita. Mr. Lemma pauses for a moment, processing what she said. When he hears Levita, he immediately understands her accent. He asks if she crossed the border, and she confirms that she did, traveling by train. Then he asks what she wants from him, and for a moment, Layla can't find the words. She just holds her bag tightly, hoping the man in Levita told him about her. Mr. Lemma waits for her to speak, looking at her with a questioning expression. Just then, the postman walks up to them. He greets Mr. Lemma and mentions that it looks like Layla has met him already. Mr. Lemma asks if the postman brought her here, and the postman confirms that he did, handing Mr. Lemma a letter from Levita. When Mr. Lemma hears that, his expression changes, and he doesn't seem too pleased. The postman, having completed his task, says his goodbyes and leaves them to go on their way. The letter says, "Dear Mr. Bill Lemma, a girl will come to you. Her name is Layla Lulin, daughter of Albert Lulin. Her mother left a long time ago, after having an affair with another man. After that, Albert turned to alcohol, got sick, and eventually passed away. The girl has been bouncing from one relative's house to another with nowhere to call home. The families don't treat her well, and my own family is too poor to take her in. We can't afford to take care of her. You are the only one left who can take her in because of your connection to the family. I heard you work as a gardener for a famous duke, and you are the only one who might be able to help. I am sending her to you. As Mr. Lemma reads the letter, his face grows darker, and his anger starts to show. He doesn't argue with the fact that the girl is his relative, but the truth is, he never knew her father. It's been over 20 years since he last saw this girl, and now they expect him to take care of her. He's not prepared for this. He's already divorced, and his life is complicated enough. He crumples the letter in his hand, frustrated, and wonders why they didn't just send her to an orphanage instead of dropping her on his doorstep. He yells out loud, his voice full of frustration, asking if they think he's their servant, that he should take on all their problems. He's furious that they've sent the girl to him like it's his responsibility, especially when he knows they don't really care about him. He's struggling to understand how any of her so-called relatives, who call themselves adults, could do this to a child. Sending her here alone is outrageous to him. Mr. Lemma stops his outburst and thinks for a moment. It's clear that her relatives don't care if the girl lives or dies in this strange place. He glances at Layla and wonders if she's cold, especially with just the light clothes she's wearing. She's so thin, and he figures she must not have eaten much for a while. He can't imagine what it was like for her to travel all the way here to a foreign country, with only a small suitcase, all alone. His frustration grows, and he slaps his face, trying to shake off the thoughts racing through his mind. Layla, noticing his frustration, calls out to him softly. When he looks at her, she stands on her tiptoes and tells him not to worry about her. She says she's not that young, and she'll be 12 in just a week. She offers to help him with anything, saying she can read and write well, so she could be very useful to him. Mr. Lemma just stands there, surprised. He can't believe how innocent and determined this little girl is. After a moment, he gathers his gardening tools and tells Layla to follow him. He says she needs food first before they can figure out what to do next. Time passes, and soon it's night. They're inside Mr. Lemma's house, and Layla wonders if he lives alone. Doesn't he have any family? At the dinner table, Mr. Lemma speaks to her and asks if the meal is enough to satisfy her hunger. Layla tells him she doesn't eat much, but the food will be fine. Mr. Lemma replies that he doesn't like kids much because they have small appetites, but he expects her to eat everything, like a cow. Layla doesn't answer right away, she just focuses on her food. She handles her utensils carefully, and after a moment, she tells him that she doesn't eat like a cow, but she can eat just fine. Mr. Lemma looks at Layla, and says he can see that she's not afraid. He slams his mug on the table, his face changing into a much more serious, almost scary expression. He then asks her if she's not scared of him. Layla just smiles brightly, saying no, she's not scared. She tells him that he doesn't shout at her or hit her, and he even gives her enough food to eat, like the meal she's having right now. She thanks him and says she really believes he's a good person. Mr. Lemma feels even more angry. A burning feeling grows in his chest as he wonders what kind of life this young girl has had, that she's thankful just for being treated with basic kindness. He curses the people who were supposed to care for her, calling them horrible, cruel people. He takes a big gulp from his cup, still struggling with his thoughts. His financial situation isn't great, and he knows it doesn't make sense for him to try to take care of her long term. He'll have to think about it later, but for now, he doesn't know what to do with her or where to send her. The next day, Mr. Lemma comes to a temporary decision. He tells Layla that she can stay with him in his house until they figure out what to do with her. Layla looks at herself in the mirror, wondering what will happen next, though deep down she feels like this is just another stop in the endless journey of uncertainty she's used to. She heads out of her room and finds Mr. Lemma in the kitchen. She greets him with a bright smile, asking if he had a good night's sleep. He answers that he did, but he's focused on the meal he's making. Layla walks up to him and asks if he'd like her to take the dishes to the table. Without waiting for an answer, she picks them up and brings them to the table. Once there, she thanks him for the meal. Mr. Lemma gives her a plate, telling her that he wants her to eat more now. Layla enjoys the meal even more now, telling Mr. Lemma she'll eat more just like he asked her to. In the Duke's mansion, whispers fill the halls. People are talking, wondering if anyone has heard the news. They listen closely as a handmaiden steps forward and tells them that Bill Lemma, the gardener, is raising a little girl. Everyone is surprised, repeating her words in disbelief. The older handmaiden shakes her head, saying it seems impossible. She jokes that it's more likely for Mr. Lemma to raise an elephant, or a lion, or some other wild animal, than a little girl. But the younger handmaiden insists she's sure it's a girl. One of the young manservants in the group also thinks it's strange. He says that Mr. Lemma has lived alone ever since his wife passed away, and he asks if anyone knows if he had any children. Someone else says they heard a rumor that Mr. Lemma's wife couldn't have children, so how could he be raising a girl? Another handmaiden says she's not ready to dismiss him just yet. She points out that Mr. Lemma might actually be good at something like that, since he's so talented with flowers. He's the best gardener they have, and even the lady of the house has praised him for his skills. The older handmaiden raises an eyebrow and asks what that has to do with raising a child. She says that children aren't like flowers, and she doesn't see how they could be the same. But she's not willing to completely write him off yet. The oldest handmaiden, though, seems nervous. She's heard rumors, and she's worried that things could get messy, especially with Mr. Lemma and this little girl. One of the young manservants catches everyone's attention and points outside, saying it looks like the rumors are true after all. Everyone hurries to the window to see what he means. They are all shocked by the sight. Outside, Mr. Lemma is pushing his wheelbarrow, and Layla is walking behind him, holding a pot of plants. Someone asks if she's really a girl. Another person notices her blonde hair, and wonders how old she is. They all wonder how such a young girl ended up with Mr. Lemma. That's the question on everyone's mind. It doesn't take long for them to get their answer. The story of Layla Lulin, the orphan, spreads quickly among the mansion staff. The handmaidens like Layla. One day, she brings them some flowers, and they are really happy to receive them. They ask her if her name is Layla, just like they've heard. One of the maidens gives her some cookies, and Layla hesitates, asking if it's really okay for her to take them. The maiden smiles and assures her that it's fine, hoping she enjoys them. Layla thanks her and enjoys the cookies. Later, the two maidens talk among themselves in the mansion. One wonders if the little girl is really an orphan. The other wonders what Bill will do with her, what his plans are for this young, beautiful soul. Whenever anyone asks Bill about Layla, he always gives the same answer. Bill Lemma tells everyone he's still thinking about what to do with Layla. He hasn't made up his mind yet, and he can't keep her forever, so he needs to figure out another solution. He says he's taking his time to make the decision. He had been thinking that maybe by the time spring comes, he'll have everything figured out. But by now, it's become normal to see Layla helping out with the work and following him around. The staff at the Herhardt mansion, who watch them both, start to talk. They all agree that Bill Lemma, the gardener, is good at taking care of flowers, but maybe not much else. They think it's a bit odd that they just came to that conclusion, but they don't mind. Maybe they made their decision because they care about him. One day at Bill's house, someone brings a basket to him. He looks at it with a frown and asks what's inside. The maiden tells him it's cookies and bread, left over from a tea party the day before. Bill tells her he doesn't like sweet things, but the lady doesn't care. She says the food is for Layla anyway. Bill grumbles that lately, it seems like everyone is using Layla as an excuse to come to his house. First, Someone brought her clothes, then books, and lots of things to help her learn to write. Even a lady who's never come to visit him before showed up with gifts. There are people who just come to see Layla for no reason, and it's starting to get on his nerves. The lady says that's because Layla is so beautiful, kind, and polite. She doesn't understand why Bill doesn't see that, and she asks if he doesn't know that's why everyone is interested in her. It's really cute to watch Layla run around the gardens and forests, like a little squirrel. She brings so much light, joy, and hope to everyone around her. It's been a long time since the Duke's house felt so full of happiness. The lady asks Bill if he remembers how the Duke was back then, when he was just like Layla. While they are talking, the lady notices Layla trying to climb a tree. She exclaims, asking Mr. L what is happening. She can't believe what she's seeing and shouts that the little girl is actually climbing the tree. Mr. L stays calm and even grins a little, telling her that someone must have taught Layla how to climb trees, because it's a useful skill. The lady stands up in shock and anger, asking Mr. L who taught Layla to do that. She asks what he's been teaching the girl. Mr. L says he's raising her well, and doesn't see the problem. The lady is upset, saying Layla is a girl and should be raised like a delicate flower, not climbing trees. She's stunned, wondering if Mr. L seriously thinks this is the right way to raise Layla, and she's worried about how the girl will turn out. Mr. L gets angry too, telling her that she's annoying him. He says he's sure Layla will be fine as long as she sleeps well and stays healthy, and he doesn't like the criticism. The lady calms down a bit and asks if he's made up his mind about what to do with Layla. Mr. L asks what she's talking about. The lady explains that it's summer now, so she's wondering if he still hasn't decided where Layla will stay, or where he plans to send her. Mr. L has no words. He still hasn't figured out what to do about Layla's future. In the end, he feels like she'll have to go to an orphanage, which seems like the safest option. That's really all he can think of right now. Another day comes, and Mr. L tells Layla not to wander too far from the house. She assures him she won't go anywhere too far, or into any unfamiliar places. She just wants to go to the river. Mr. L thinks about it for a while, wondering where he should send her. He wants to make sure it's somewhere she can grow up without anyone hurting her. He cares about Layla, and that's why he still hasn't been able to make a decision. As Mr. Ls worries about Layla grow, summer arrives with its warm, energetic weather. Layla continues to grow under his care. She loves listening to the birds and often spends her time watching the birds in the vast sky above the beautiful Arvis forest. As she grows, the forest around her changes too, with plants filling up with delicious fruits and animals freely roaming the land, following the warm winds. Every day, new life emerges. Layla watches it all, feeling the beauty of spring and nature at its peak. When she looks at the light shining off the surface of the Schult River, she feels a sense of freedom. It feels like the nightmares from Levita are a distant memory. Layla sits in her favorite tree, writing down everything she sees and feels during the day. She wants to remember everything, so she can open her notebook every day and look back on what she experienced, no matter what happens in the future. She doesn't want to forget the good times. She's so young, yet she's already been through so much. She feels like the good times she's having now might not last forever, and there's a subtle fear growing inside her. Back at Mr. L's house, Layla walks through the front door and sees him getting ready to go out. She asks where he's going, and he tells her that they both need to go somewhere, so she needs to get ready. Layla feels a little nervous, wondering if the good times are over. Has something changed? Mr. L notices her worry and smiles at her, telling her not to look so scared. He says they are just going into town to buy some clothes. He explains that the Duke is coming back soon, and it would be strange for her to greet him dressed the way she is now. On their way to town, Layla asks Mr. L about the Duke. She wonders if he's the one who owns the land. Mr. L confirms that yes, the Duke is the owner, and now that summer is ending, he's coming back to the mansion. The Duke usually spends his summer in Arvis. Layla asks if the Duke still goes to school, since Mr. L mentioned vacation. Mr. L tells her that even the Duke has to go to school, even at the age of 18. Layla is surprised by this, never realizing the Duke is only 18. Mr. L adds that the Duke became the owner of the land at the same age Layla is now. He became Duke when he was just 12. Layla is shocked by this. Finally, the Duke arrives. The people line up to greet him, and he steps out of his train looking amazing. As soon as his feet hit the ground, his butler is there to greet him. The butler offers to take the Duke to the mansion, and everyone watches as the Duke walks with his group. They continue for a short while before reaching his noble carriage. The Duke seems a little surprised, and his butler jokes about the young master worrying too much. He says the young master still thinks cars are dangerous, but the butler apologizes and hopes next time will be different. The Duke says it's fine, and it's nice to try something old-fashioned once in a while. They both get into the carriage, and they move forward. Back at the mansion, the handmaidens, manservants, and even the gardener are all waiting for the Duke's arrival. Of course, Layla is also there, standing in the line to welcome him. Could this be the start of something new? In the carriage, the butler starts giving a report to the young master. He tells the Duke that while he was in Arvis, the board of directors had meetings about a few things. They discussed social gatherings, tradeship insurance, and other matters. The young master listens carefully and goes through the details with the butler. As their carriage moves toward the mansion, the scenery outside is stunning, nature is looking its best, and everything feels peaceful. At the mansion, someone addresses the whole staff. They are reminded that they can't afford to make any mistakes today. They all need to be at their best because the young master is coming back. Everyone responds with a chorus of yes. They are all nervous, probably because the young master's return is a big deal. One of the handmaidens notices Layla, and she says she saw that Layla is wearing a new dress today. She asks if Layla is also going to greet the Duke like the others. Layla smiles and happily tells her that her loving uncle bought her the new dress and that yes, she's here to greet the young master too. Mr. L stays serious and doesn't show much emotion. The Duke has arrived. Everyone is in place, ready to greet him. His carriage stops just outside the mansion. Besides the staff, there are other people waiting for him as well. Two ladies stand out in the crowd. As soon as the Duke steps out of the carriage, he immediately walks over to them. They greet him by calling him Matthias, and he is the Duke, the owner of the land. He hugs the older lady warmly and calls her grandma, asking how she's been. Then, he hugs the younger lady, who is his mother. His mother says that the Duke has grown taller since the last time they saw each other. Grandma suggests they head inside because they've prepared a meal for him to share with them. Layla stands in line, keeping quiet and not showing any emotion. She keeps her head down out of respect for the nobles, her eyes focused on the feet of the people as they make their way into the mansion. She asks her uncle if they aren't going to greet the young master after all. Mr. L tells her they'll have to do it next time. As they make their way back to his house, he asks Layla if she's feeling sad. She admits that she's a little bit sad because he went through the trouble of getting her a new dress. Mr. L reassures her, saying it's okay. He tells her that the Duke visits the forest often, so they'll have other chances to meet him, and they can ask for permission the next time. Layla wonders if the Duke likes the forest as much as she does. Mr. L says he's sure he does, adding that the Duke likes hunting. Layla gets more interested when she hears this and asks about it. Mr. L explains that it's only natural for the Duke to hunt in the forest since it's the noble family's hunting ground. Layla asks if her uncle hunts too, especially birds. Mr. L says the Duke probably likes hunting birds, and that she'll be amazed when she sees the young master's shooting skills. He's still young, but he's already a great marksman. Layla feels frustrated by this news, her hands gripping her dress, as she asks why the Duke hunts birds. She wonders why he would do that when there's plenty of food in the mansion for the nobles without having to hunt. Mr. L explains to Layla that hunting is something nobles enjoy, and of all the things they hunt, birds are the most fun. As he speaks, Layla stops behind him, and a look of betrayal slowly appears on her face. Her eyes start to sparkle, and soon enough, tears begin to form. She tells him that she hopes the Duke doesn't like hunting. Mr. L realizes that he might have said too much. He knows that for a little girl like Layla, it probably feels different when birds are involved. Layla then asks if there's any chance, any possibility, that the Duke wouldn't like hunting birds. Mr. L doesn't know how to answer her and stays quiet. A week later, Layla runs through the forest like she's trying to catch up with someone. She hears a sound coming from a tree, and it's something she recognizes right away. A big smile spreads across her face as she climbs up the tree to find out what it is. When she looks closely, she sees a nest with hatched eggs and baby birds. The new life has arrived, and she's the first to see it. She counts the little chicks, 5 in total, all so cute. The birds chirp as if they are calling for someone, and Layla tells them she knows they are hungry. She tells them to wait a bit because their mother will be back soon to feed them. Sitting in the tree, she starts to think back to when her own mother was around. She remembers the time her mother packed up all her things, and little Layla asked if her mom was going somewhere. Her mom said yes and handed her a little jar of sweets, telling her she was going somewhere far away. Layla asked if her mom would be back before she ate all the sweets, and her mom said yes. That was the last time Layla saw her mother. Layla looks up at the tree and sees the mother bird returning. She carefully climbs down, trying not to disturb the little birds so their mother won't be alarmed. The bird flies into the nest and meets her 5 newly hatched chicks. Layla smiles, feeling happy as she watches this beautiful moment. She moves to her favorite tree, sits down, and stares out at the vast river. She thinks about how wonderful her life has been lately. First, there was the forest, with nature's warm embrace in the spring. Then, her uncle gave her a new dress, and now, the baby birds have hatched safely, all 5 of them. Their feathers are growing so fluffy. Layla carefully draws the birds in her memory book, feeling proud of the little creatures. She thinks about how soon they'll have to leave the nest. In 2 weeks, they'll be flying on their own. She feels excited and joyful about that. She packs up her book, eager to tell Mr. L about everything she's seen. Before she climbs down, she hears someone approaching. She pauses, unsure whether to climb down or wait. She looks down and sees a young man on a horse getting closer. He stops near the tree, takes out a hunting rifle, and removes his hat. Layla wonders if she should wait until he passes, but now it feels like that might be hard. She watches him as he gets closer, noticing his every move. When she decides to climb down, he senses movement in the tree and gets ready. He's quick and sharp, and as soon as he notices something, he aims his rifle and gets his fingers on the trigger. Layla screams, panic rising in her chest, and holds onto the tree as the gun points directly at her. It's a terrifying sight, and she can't help but scream at the sudden danger. It's only natural to react like this when someone points a weapon at you so quickly. Even though Layla is scared, she speaks. She tells the young man she was going to climb down after he passed by, but she changed her mind. He asks who she is, and her voice shakes as she tells him her name. It's Layla. Layla Liulin. She runs all the way home as fast as she can, and Mr. L is surprised when he sees her coming. He asks what happened. She tells him everything in detail, about the young man she met in the forest. He was tall, with black hair and blue eyes, and his voice was soft, like a waterfowl's feather. Layla is really good at noticing the little things. She explains that the young man had a gun, but then some people came to him. Mr. L listens and says he's sure it was the young master she met. He fits her description perfectly, and he must have been the Duke, hunting in the woods. He reminds Layla that he told her she'd meet the young master often in the forest. Then he asks if she greeted him properly. Layla remembers how she introduced herself. She was trembling with fear, screaming. Mr. L pats her on the head gently and tells her the person she met was the Duke himself. Just then, a gunshot rings out from afar. Layla feels a wave of fear and worry. Hunting has started. She remembers asking before if the young master hunts birds, and now, she's terrified for the little birds. The 5 baby birds in the nest are still too young, and they'll be flying soon, but she fears they might get hurt. Maybe the Duke really likes hunting birds the most. He's young, but he's an amazing marksman, as Mr. L had said. Layla is in shock and fear, tears filling her eyes. Mr. L gently touches her shoulder and tries to calm her down. He tells her they need to go home, but she just stands there, frozen. Her tears fall, and she wonders if something bad has already happened. The Duke, Matthias von Herhardt, is from a very powerful and respected family. He is the heir to a prestigious line, and he's known as one of the most distinguished aristocrats in the land. Everyone admires him for his elegance, dignity, and the way he carries himself. They all call him the masterpiece of the Herhardt family, and it's clear that he's loved and praised by everyone. But there's one person who doesn't see him in the same light. That person is Layla Liulin. On the day the Duke went hunting in the woods, Layla was also there. She saw so many birds that had lost their lives in just one day. All of them were victims of the Duke's hunt. The smaller birds are the hardest to hit, but he managed to take down so many. He didn't even look at the birds after he shot them. Layla crouches down near one of the little birds, its tiny body covered in blood. She wonders why it had to happen this way. Even if the birds were dead, all he had to do was leave them alone, but he didn't. Recently, a mother chickadee who had been feeding her chicks every day died. The weak, helpless chicks stayed in their nest, never having the chance to fly. They died without their mother. Layla has been burying all the dead birds for the past month, since the Duke started coming to the forest. She's decided to give him a nickname, the Slayer of the Beautiful Birds. She thinks it's a fitting title. Of course, that's just how Layla sees things. Time passes, and one day, Layla is looking out the window at the wide open fields. Mr. L walks up behind her, stretches out his arms, and comforts her. He leads her outside for the day's activities, trying to ease her mind. Layla sits by herself on a picnic mat under the shade of a tree. She wonders if she'll be alone again today. Uncle Bill is working in a hot place, and whenever she tells him she wants to help, he just brushes her off. Instead, he tells her to rest and relax where she is. This time, he warns her that if she keeps asking to follow him, he'll get really angry. He tells her he hates children who don't listen. He also says that when he calls for her later, she can come down, and if she gets hungry, she can eat as many peaches as she wants. Layla feels a little down, but doesn't argue. She curls up with her knees to her chest. Then, someone approaches. It's a young boy, smiling as he says hello to her. Layla is surprised, wondering who he is since she's never seen him before. The boy asks if she lives here, and she says she does, with her uncle, the gardener. The boy asks if she's talking about the scary gardener. Layla quickly says Mr. L isn't scary at all. The boy laughs and says he gets scared whenever he sees Mr. L. Layla then asks if the boy lives here, but he says he doesn't. He's only here because of his father. His father is the Duke's family doctor, and today, the Duke's grandmother, Dowager Herhardt, is getting an examination. The boy's father is doing the exam, and Dowager Herhardt said it was fine for the boy to come along. The boy smiles and keeps talking, and Layla listens quietly. They sit together for a while. He asks how old she is, and they both find out they are the same age, 12. The boy says she's really small for her age. Layla replies that he's not that big either. The boy disagrees, saying he's the tallest in his class at school. Layla isn't impressed and says he's still small compared to Uncle Bill. The boy laughs out loud and says he's sure there aren't many people taller than her uncle, not even most adults. Layla stands firm and tells the boy that if she's small, then he's small too. He laughs and says it's okay, the shade from the tree makes it nice and cool here. Layla wonders if he's planning to stay for a while, so she offers him some of her peaches. The boy is surprised she has a knife, and she explains that she got it from her uncle. He takes a peach and then asks if she's okay because she looks a bit sad. Layla says it's because the Duke and his friends keep hunting birds, and it makes her sad. He asks why that's a problem, and Layla says it's because they are killing the birds just for fun. He asks if hunting has always been like that, and Layla looks at him, wondering if he's into it too. The boy shakes his head and says he doesn't hunt. He tells her he feels bad for the birds and imagines how the animals must feel, being sad and in pain. Layla is a little surprised but keeps calm. She had thought he might be strange, but now she thinks he's actually a good kid. She offers him another peach, this time a bigger one. With a kind smile, the boy takes the peach and says it's delicious, complimenting the flavor. Layla tells him she picked it from the forest, so it's really fresh. Then they hear someone calling, Kyle. Kyle. It's his mother, telling him it's time to go home. He answers her and says goodbye to Layla. He introduces himself as Kyle Ettman and asks her name. Layla tells him her name, and they shake hands, becoming new friends. Kyle waves goodbye and says they'll play together again sometime. Layla wonders if they really will see each other again. As Kyle walks away with his mom, he shouts back that he'll bring something delicious next time. Layla waves him goodbye with a smile, thinking it's probably better not to tell him that she might be leaving soon. With his mother, Kyle is asked who the girl was, and he says she's the one who lives with the gardener, that she's his new friend and the same age as him. His mother looks back at Layla as they walk away, leaving Layla wondering where their friendship will lead.